Hello and welcome. Today I'm chatting about The Fourth Wing, which I have finished, and A Crown of Thorns and Roses, which I just started a few days ago, so I'm not quite finished. But I wanted to do a comparison of these two because I have to return Fourth Wing to the library. A Court of Thorn and Roses I'll be talking more about when I finished it, but it is a book I purchased, so I have a little more time with that one. I should mention, if you're a fan of Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, you're probably not going to like this video. So you may want to click off now, or you may want to hear why I didn't find it a super great read until page 391. Likewise, if you didn't enjoy A Court of Thorn and Roses, you may find some of my comments about this book different than your thoughts. And I have to say, so far, Farah isn't grading on me the way she seems to have graded on you, but there's a particular reason for that. So Fourth Wing, a lot of people are talking about it. It's a series. I likely will not continue with it, partly because at my library, the second book, I think there's something like 114 holds when I last checked for Iron Flame, and I am definitely not going to be purchasing the book. In fact, I'm very happy that I got Fourth Wing through the library to begin with, because I would be a very unhappy camper had I purchased this book. Now, for me, part of the reason, and it kind of made sense as I was actually discussing this with someone the other day, I've read so many different young adult series that I think that's part of why I didn't find Fourth Wing enjoyable. So as I was going through, I could see elements of Divergent, of Marked, of Harry Potter, of Hunger Games, and Wheel of Time. To me, it felt like this author had taken all these different series and the different elements, stuck them in a blender, threw it at the wall to see what would stick, and just grabbed bits and pieces and threw them into the story. The other thing I found, before I get into more details about what I found difficult about the book, the premise of the story is that we have our main character, Violet, who had been training to be a scribe, and that's what she had been planning to do. Her mother, who is the general, decides, no, you're going to become a dragon rider. And in this particular culture, that certainly isn't an easy task. Violet has some physical challenges, as did Beatrice in the Divergent series, but in that case, Trish decided what group she wanted to go to. Violet doesn't have a choice. Her mother assigns her to it. This is 6 months before this big event is to begin. You have to go across this very dangerous parapet, even to get into where the rest of the training's going to go. And the main thing between when training begins, provided you don't fall off the parapet, and until the dragons potentially decide whether they are going to bond with you and you'll become a rider, is all these people are trying to kill each other off because there's only so many dragons and there are more humans that go into the training than dragons. I found that bizarre because unless you have a massive population, you're sending your youth to die for pretty much why if you're at a war? I mean, you're already killing your own off before you even get out to the lines. So that didn't really wash with me. Then we have Violet, who, as I said, was training as a scribe, so the record keepers. We have elements of 1984 coming in here with history being changed. We also have the Pullman Dark Trilogy coming in with how Violet's mother behaves. And like I say, there's just so many other stories that came in that for me, that was part of the, okay, I've started the book. I just want to finish this one and be done with it. But that's my take on it. And the reason I'm doing this review is it's why I always recommend giving a book a test run through your public library when possible, whether I recommend a book or somebody else, because as I say, people have been going on about Fourth Wing. They've enjoyed the read. Myself, not so much. I love dragons, obviously, and I did enjoy the dragons in this particular work, which is why I am sad that I won't be continuing with the series, because there are amazing places that this story can go with the dragons for a change their characters onto themselves, not just in the background. They have personalities. They're amazing. And that was part of the book that I truly did enjoy. It was the last 107 pages that I actually enjoyed reading. But in that part, she finally gets around to explaining this world and what's going on between two sides of this border or wards, as they call them. There's your magical things going on. That's where Wheel of Time comes in, and some of the characters she talks about, they have a different name, but they sound like the Forsaken from the Wheel of Time. What I really didn't enjoy through the first part of the book were all the unnecessary F-bombs, but I know in current writing and movies and streaming TV, that's just the way people talk now. So if you don't mind reading F-bombs every other page, then that's not going to impact you. In terms of the romantic scenes that went on for pages and pages, I really didn't need that much detail. And a big chunk of the first part of the book as well is Violet, her old friend Dane, who is already a rider. She's thinking there might be something there. I'm thinking the guy's a douche. Ooh, what a shock. Later he is. And then, of course, when she realizes she isn't interested in him, she's all gaga for Xaden, and it just goes on and on. Now, keeping in mind, Violet is a 20-year-old female training to be a dragon rider, not by her choice, but prior to this, she had been training to be a scribe, meaning she should have known what was in the library, and she should have had a clue even before this started happening of what was going on with certain materials. But she doesn't. And she's considered their star individual. And yet, in the very early part of the book, she's on library duty, going to pick up books for the riders, and she asks about a particular book that her father had given her, but she couldn't bring the copy with her. Her friend, who happens to be working that day as well, goes to take a look and tells her there's no copy in the library. Violet thinks that's odd, but it doesn't register that maybe this is a red flag. Not long after, they're given information for what's called their morning battle briefs, and updating what's going on along the borders. She and Liam notice during the battle brief that the document they picked up and accidentally opened and saw, some of the information wasn't shared during that morning's brief. But again, nothing's registering in Violet's brain, partly because, well, she's not thinking with her brain. Let's leave it at that. So there's these big clues that this, we're told, highly intelligent young woman is missing all over the place. And for me, that just didn't work. I personally don't enjoy reading about characters who are interested in nothing but the horizontal mamba. I want to read about someone with a brain that uses it, that starts putting information together and realizing they have some important clues, even if they don't figure it out in the first few pages, at least recognize that there's something bigger going on here. So, in terms of a character, Violet for me, she's like Zoe in Marked, maybe the main character, but definitely not the main character I'm interested in learning about. I was far more interested in the dragons. So, like I say, if you're a fan of Fourth Wing, I'm sorry. But on the other hand, different books speak to different people. If you enjoyed Fourth Wing, I recommend going to check out Kat's review of the book at Ginger Bibliophile. She very much enjoyed it. She also has a review of Iron Flame that you should watch. Let me know in the comments down below. Have you read Fourth Wing? Are you interested in continuing with the series? So now on to A Court of Thorns and Roses. This is by Sarah J. Maas. I am currently only up to page 184, so this will be brief. I've seen various comments about ACOTAR. Some people love it, some people hate it, much like Fourth Wing. And again, that goes back to different books speak to different people. And I personally enjoy hearing both views of a book because we all have different experiences. And sometimes, because if you read recommendations or hear reviews prior to reading it, you're going in with the mindset of what other people have said. So I appreciate that during a chat that Janie and I had, and she very much enjoyed this series, she mentioned don't go into it thinking it's a romance. And that was the best advice that I had. Now, I know my good friend Ven definitely dislikes the character of Feyre, and I'll find out what that's about later in the book. And yes, I did get past the part with where she kills the wolf, and thankfully, unlike Stephen King, there goes Zena, it wasn't immensely descriptive and gory and pages type of thing. So I managed to get past that part. As far as Feyre, and again, this goes back to I've read so many YA series. I was thinking Harry Potter in terms of the Dursleys. Feyre's family are just vile. Because of my background as a caseworker, to me, Feyre is very much someone from an abused family, and her loyalty to this family is sadly what does happen in abusive homes. Even though these people don't even give her a second thought, take advantage of her. There's elements of Cinderella here, minus the wicked stepmother. She has two sisters that are not stepsisters, but they treat her as bad as the two in Cinderella. And again, all these other books that I've read and stories are coming into A Court of Thorn and Roses. But so far, I'm enjoying it actually, and I'm looking forward to finishing it. I haven't decided whether I'll continue the series. We'll see how the rest of it goes. So far, Noah would be proud of me. The spine has not been cracked. I haven't written anywhere in the book because I wasn't sure if I was going to enjoy the read. I didn't even put the date that I started reading it, which is what I normally do in my personal books. I never write or do things in library books. But I may actually end up going back to highlight and start annotating different things because, like I say, the character of Feyre, to me, there's a lot there. Not just her family, but suddenly being in this other world. Like in Fourth Wing, we have a magical boundary between two worlds. I think that comes up, and again, here we go. Like Game of Thrones, between the two different worlds. We have the two different worlds in Fourth Wing, the boundary of the magical world and non. Court of Thrones, we have the magical world, the Fae have most of the land, the humans are in a little southern tip. In her world, it looks very much like Great Britain, which I do wonder what some readers thought about the island to the west, but I'll talk more about that when I've actually finished the novel. Tamlin, I find interesting. There's a lot more to learn about him. So far, all I know is that he's a High Lord. He doesn't buy into the same thoughts as the rest of the Fae about humans are just basically good enough to be slaves, and that's about it. That was what created this huge war 500 years before. This is where some elements of Lord of the Rings comes into the story, because we do know that 500 years ago some of the Fae fought beside the humans. Things didn't go well. Obviously, the humans just have a small portion of land to make some kind of living from. And then 50 years ago, we know from Tamlin, there was some kind of curse that happened in his zone. I believe there are 7 different zones for the Fae. They were at a party, they were all wearing the masks. Something happened and they weren't able to take the masks off. There's some other big entity that is damaging the Fae and killing them. So there's a lot of different things going on. So again, all these other series that I've read are coming into this. And I don't know if that's happening for other readers or not. Let me know in the comments down below. When you're reading a book, are you just focused on that particular story, or are you like me and all these other stories you've read start coming in and you're thinking of the other characters? After that battle, there was a treaty made, there was a ward put between the two, so the Fae have the majority of the land, the humans are down in the bottom. Also gives you elements of Game of Thrones between the two different worlds there. So like I say, other things keep coming up. But there is an agreement. The Fae stay on their side, the humans stay on their side, partly because humans would not do well over in the land of the Fae. To the Fae, they're just fodder. They're good for slaves, and that's about all humans are good for. The exception to this is Tamlin, who we end up meeting because after Feyre kills the wolf, she ends up selling the hide. The family's just interested in the money she can give them. She's also brought them food, the deer, that will feed them for a while. But when the Fae learn of Andras's death, Tamlin comes to the house and he ends up taking Feyre to his land in payment for having killed Andras. Feyre, as a typical individual from an abusive home, is solely focused on her family, taking care of them, and the promise that she made to her mother. So I think from that aspect, Feyre doesn't grate on me as much as she may grate on some other readers, because I'm looking at what Feyre has gone through up to the point where we meet her, and then she's in the Fae Kingdom in Tamlin's court, which is the Spring Court. My opinion of Feyre may change as I continue to read, but so far I don't actually find her irritating. The only part that I find irritating, quite frankly, is the same thing that irritated me with Harry in the Harry Potter series, is in the Potter series, Harry keeps going back to this nasty family rather than just staying at Hogwarts. Here in A Court of Thrones, Feyre is constantly thinking of going back to this family who don't really care about her and who are immensely toxic. And that I understand it in terms of the psychology and what happens, but as a reader, I find it frustrating because here she has this whole other world. Tamlin has assured her that her family's being taken care of. They're fine. Now, granted, we don't know whether he's telling the truth or not, but it almost seems like it because Tamlin doesn't seem to be like the other Fae. He regards humans differently. He's not into this whole let's just have them as slaves mentality. He takes care of Feyre. He's allowed her to wander through his court. He looks after her. So far, I have to say, I'm enjoying the read. I'm enjoying the characters. I do like Lucian, partly because, yes, I am very sarcastic, and he's definitely a character that I can see there's going to be some interesting conversations coming up. Lucian is not all warm and fuzzy about the humans, but he is loyal to Tamlin, and we learn about their backstory. Fourth Wing, I only enjoyed the last 107 pages. I am somewhat curious where it will go, but I'm fine with letting other people read it, and then I can just ask them questions about the dragons and the world part that I'm interested in. So thank you to the folks who will continue reading this. As for A Court of Thorns and Roses, I'm not sure if I'll continue on with the series. I'll be checking my library to see what the hold situation is like on the other books. I'm going to try and behave myself and not buy too many new books before March. Let's leave it at that because there are a couple I have my eye on. Let me know in the comments down below. Did you enjoy Fourth Wing? Have you read ACOTAR and did you enjoy it? Until next time, remember, give those books a trial run through your library first and then decide whether you want to make that investment. Take good care.